Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Global Career Forum, the international online recruiting event organized for the MBA students from top business schools. We welcome you to today's online session with Philips Group Strategy, and we have the pleasure to welcome for this live session our keynote speakers, Sven Hersman, who is Head of Strategy and Business Development, and Linda Hoekstra, who is a Talent Acquisition Consultant. As this is a live Q&A session, I do invite all participants to ask your questions in the Q&A panel on the top right side, and we'll convey them to the speakers. Sven and Linda, warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we wanted to take the time today to walk through a few pages. We had actually put together many more, but we understand the format is to kind of do a quick introduction that you guys welcome, by the way, again, that you guys have already done your homework on Philips and really would benefit most from asking questions. So we'll do that briefly and then jump to your questions. So maybe, I think we just had the introduction. Maybe Linda, you wanted to say something, a few words on yourself?
Yeah, I'm Linda. I'm working 3 years in Philips now, mainly responsible for the requisitions in SMAP, which is in short abbreviation for strategy, M&A, M&F, and partnerships. Prior to Philips, I worked at PwC, also in recruitment for 8 years. Yeah, just in short.
Thank you. And my name is Sven Hermans, responsible for strategy of our consumer businesses, part of the overall strategy management team as well. I joined Philips in 2008, so more than a decade ago. Sounds quite long. And before that, I was in consulting for 12 years, as you can see also on this picture. The last company I worked for was Monitor Group, who after that subsequently got acquired by Deloitte. So I said we wanted to walk through a few pages on, if the technology helps me, on Philips. I think most of you probably have a certain association with Philips. I think what is important to understand, I mean, strategy is about choices, and we've chosen to play in health tech. But we haven't always been in that focus space. As you can see on this page, we truly transformed the company in the last, almost like decade. We actually IPO'd our lighting business, currently running under the name of Signify, and we also sold off our TV and lifestyle entertainment businesses. If you look at it, though, the company has become a bit smaller, but the overall growth rate and profitability has jumped up significantly, also because we believe we have a unique where to play and how to win in the health tech industry. So quite a substantial shift in the last couple of years, and we plan, without going into the details, we plan to make another such a shift in the coming years as we embark on our journey towards health tech leadership. So I think that's an overall scene setter. For the people that like to see the financials, I think here you can see actually that at least the initial lag of our transformation has paid off, both in terms of shareholder returns, which you see on the top left. We've outperformed basically the key market index and as well the health tech peers, but also in terms of enterprise value. And most notably, I think at the bottom, what you see there is what's the company worth as a multiple of its profitability. And as you can see, we're steadily moving up. We still have a bit of a way to go, which is also the opportunity, I think. But as you see on the right side, bottom right, the two blue bars, from the early years, 2015, 2016, the multiple, and we moved actually up to a 12-point multiple now. So that's, from a financial perspective, the value creation. If you then look at we like playing in positions of leadership for a variety of reasons, but it also allows you to get to maximum impact and helps you focus on a few key activities that you can drive with success and with innovation. Here you see them organized, a few of those leadership positions organized around the 3 clusters we have, so diagnosis and treatment. As you can see, that's where we play as a leader in ultrasound, but also imaging and image-guided therapy, which is a business we've been growing quite fast in recent years. The connected care and health informatics, which include our patient monitoring business, but also our non-invasive ventilation, and then personal health, so the consumer businesses, which include leadership positions in male grooming, shaving, oral health care. You probably know the Sonicare brand, sleep, which is the former Respironics, and also Mother and Child Care, which is known under the Avent brand. So quite a few strong positions that we build our future growth and profitability on. Then why do we do what we do? I think the industry has for a while spoken about the triple aim. We've actually expanded that to the quadruple aim because there's multiple stakeholders, and it's important to create and drive impact for all those stakeholders. So it's first and foremost, you want to, of course, look at improved health outcomes. If you play in health tech, you want to drive impact on health outcomes. We want an improved patient experience, and that often gets forgotten. It's not just a technical exercise, anything in health, but it's also quite an emotional journey. Then improve staff satisfaction, so the people that deliver the health and the healthcare, and taking cost out of the system. Probably a no-brainer if you look at some of the costs as a percentage of GDP around the world. We need to do this better and cheaper. So that's our quadruple aim. And then the acronym that Linda already referred to and that we're talking about here today, it's called SMAP. Strategy. It's a department where we bring together strategy, mergers and acquisitions, for M&A and partnerships, as well as our market analysis and forecasting activities. So it's quite a, without diminishing anybody else in the company, but it's quite an intellectual powerhouse. A lot of the strategic thinking and strategic execution is coordinated and enabled from that group. And we can go a bit further into what kind of people join, but it's people from consulting, people from other corporate strategic environments, and also people coming directly from university. So it's an exciting piece. There's, I said, 4 or 5 individual blocks that you can see on this page. I'm not going to repeat them, but they bring together both strategy definition and execution. Then maybe interest for this group, we believe in diversity. Diversity drives great outcomes, and you also see that diversity reflected in our team, our strategy, M&A, and partnerships team, both in terms of where people are coming from, and you see that on the left side in terms of geography, but also what they've done and the type of companies they worked with before. So without going into all the logos, I think they're fairly self-explanatory. You can see it's a diverse group, and it's also a group of people that is very successful in the company in growing from the strategy platform into broader leadership positions within the company. So what do? Quickly, we shape, we define, as I said, the long-term strategy for the company. We focus on growth opportunities, so really tangible pieces. Where can we grow the company further? And more importantly, any strategy is only as good as its execution. We focus on, with the colleagues, of course, of the business and the markets, on translating that strategy into actionable plans and successful execution. I think it's really exciting because probably obvious, but you get very close to the action. You get also very close to the strategic decision making of the company, and more importantly, in shaping actually an exciting and impactful journey for the company, but also for, as we just said, the broader set of stakeholders. I think for the moment I would like to skip those 2 slides and then say, I think one of the mantras that we have here, one of the starting points here is work hard, play hard. We believe that to build strong teams, people need to have the time to reflect, digest, and recharge. So that we can really work at our best. And here's some pictures. I think they kind of give you an impression of the type of teams, the type of events we do. Culture, we'll probably get some questions from you around that. Culture and a winning culture is important for us, and you do that by building strong teams and driving career paths and talent. So that's, for the moment, I think where I would like to leave it. I probably crossed the 5 minutes, but let me stop there and open up for questions.
Excellent.
Unless, Linda, you have something to add?
No, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So here's some questions coming in. I'm regrouping them, and perhaps to start off, what do you look for in your MBA hires? What do you look for today that perhaps you haven't been looking for 5 years ago?
You want to start with that one, Linda?
Well, we're looking for people that have a background in consulting, especially depending on what level you're entering. We have a manager position, then typically you have 4 years of consulting experience. Also, when you started as a more senior position, you grow to 5 years plus an MBA and so on. So that's depending, and yes, mainly we're looking for, broadly strategy-wise, we would say someone with consulting experience. But if you look at, for example, MA&F, so market analysis and forecasting, it's more on equity research, private equity, so more the financial side. So we always look for people that already bring some experience to the company, prior experience.
Yeah, maybe to just add, I think I like the part of the question around what has changed. I think what we see, and that's also why the picture that is on is still on, I think a good set of great experience and a good set of brains is, of course, very important, but not enough anymore. The health tech vision is actually an integral view on the health continuum. That's quite a mouthful, but we want to break silos, and we want to really make sure that we drive efficiency and outcomes in health tech. So we need people that can operate and think beyond the typical path, and that can actually work together with the great set of talent that is in the company. So if you look at it, I think we put a lot of emphasis on social skills, the ability to structure, the ability to engage productively with a diverse set of colleagues, which is the great thing about Philips. There's a lot of people with very diverse backgrounds. So.
Thank you very much. Another question is, you have worked in traditional consulting and now you are in internal consulting. What are the pros and cons you see in both? And would you advise to start in external, gain experience, and then go into internal consulting, or start straight into internal?
I would actually, not to be provocative or anything, I would not see this as internal consulting. Of course, we look at people with consulting capabilities. It could also be people with strategic capabilities from other corporates. I think consulting, not to put too much words, or put too much emphasis on semantics, but consulting sounds arm's length. Consulting sounds report. Consulting sounds theoretical. The reason why I came here was not to do any of those. I think what excites me, I recently got a question, what keeps you here? I think what keeps me here is two big things. One is there is still so much to improve and still so much to do in health tech and helping people to be more healthy. That's one. And the other part is, so the ambition the company has and what we can achieve. I think the other part is what keeps me here is that it's, I tend to say sometimes, and that's not to be negative to people that are in consulting, but in that sense, to a certain extent, consulting is easy, and you talk to the client and you go away for a couple of weeks and you come back again. What I like about what we do here is much more strategy and action, right? I mean, it's in the dialogue, in the meetings, in the workshops. It's much more in the now and much more focus on action. So, if you like that, if you get energy from also kind of transforming and making transformation happen, I think that's important to keep in mind. So it's not an arm's length relationship for sure.
Thank you. Would medtech or, as you put it, health tech experience be sufficient, or is consulting experience a must?
Yeah, I don't want to contradict Linda here. No, I think we're on the same page here because we do a lot of recruiting together. I think what you typically do, and I think it wasn't even on one of the slides, but you look at 4 or 5 criteria, right? We just talked about some of those, and then it always depends on how does the picture come together, right? I mean, there's many things you can do, but you cannot rewrite history. So if you're full of passion, you're a good thinker, you're a great communicator, you can work in teams, but you haven't worked in consulting, but you have shown that you can work strategically and drive transformation, we would be fools to not invite you, or actually you would probably also be fools to not apply here. So I wouldn't make it, it's about 4 or 5 criteria, and not everybody ticks on all boxes, and that's fine. That's also diversity. I mean, of course, the other extreme is not to be, but if you come from, I don't know, oil and gas, and you don't have any strategic experience, then it starts to become a bit difficult, if you see what I mean. I don't know, Linda, anything?
Yeah, no, agree.
Thank you. Another question coming in. If I understood well from Linda, she's active in Philips Group strategy, M&A, and other strategic initiatives within Philips. My question, therefore, is to know what strategy is done by the group strategy versus the M&A group versus the board, for instance, to decide on divestitures such as selling the lighting business.
I'm working in TA to be a talent acquisition, so I do not work in SMAP itself. I support SMAP from a TA perspective. From my point of view, but I think Sven can elaborate more on that later, is in the group strategy, it's really working on the deep dives in the different, as well personal health as in healthcare. Again, more from a consulting perspective. In M&A, it's really the mergers and acquisitions that we do. In MANF, they are really forecasting where are the opportunities for Philips in the emerging markets, or maybe also existing markets, and where can we move further. And also in partnerships, there we look for long-term partnerships that can help us growing as Philips.
Yeah, and then maybe to build on the second part is like, is it on a group level or on a company level versus a business level, or at what level? We basically, the way we structured it, and that's also good for talent, is that we have within the businesses, we just walk through some of those, within the businesses and within some of our key markets, we have strategic leaders that drive the strategy for that business, closely working together with the management team of that business. And we've concentrated, and that may also be where the impression of an internal consulting unit comes from. We've concentrated a group of people at group level that actually work on consulting, sorry, I use the term myself, as strategic tasks with those people in the business and the market. So there is, of course, also a theme around corporate strategy. Of course, that is a block of time, say 20–25% of the time that we work on, but it's also very close working with the strategists and the management teams in the business. So it's more or less working on a project-by-project basis, which for talent, of course, has the benefit of being able to say, actually, I just come from this industry and I don't know yet what I like, which part of Philips I really like, or saying, hey, I want to explore a bit before I actually make a choice. Right? That is the nice thing about typically the 3–4 years in strategy, M&A, and partnerships. You can learn, not just in terms of what you would like to do, but also with whom, right? Because it's, at the end of the day, also the leader or the leaders that you work for in the company, and then say, okay, I now make the step into a business group level or a market role. And we also facilitate that kind of transition in the choice of projects and pieces of work that people spend their time on, so that they can start to get to know new people, new businesses. So that was a bit of a ramble, but just to make sure that it's clear that we don't have strategists everywhere. They're very focused either on the B&M level or at group level. So.
Thank you very much. Another question, you mentioned significant upcoming changes regarding the space in which Philips plays. Curious to hear what you can share about that with us, please.
Yeah, of course I cannot talk about any inorganic activity that we plan to do. That would not be very smart on my end. But it is very clear that we're playing in an industry where a lot of change is happening and where leadership, as we said, and size matters. So we do want to use part of our proceeds for investing in acquiring new talent, new acquisitions, etc. So there will be further M&A, and that's not a surprise. It also gets covered by the variety of investment banks. So I think that's one thing. I think what you see is that then to pick up any newspaper and pick up any, that sounds 1980s, open any web page or mobile browser, and if you look at healthcare, I think you see two things. One is that there's still tremendous problems. On the other hand, you see that there's tremendous new initiatives being developed, and what we see is actually that we are part of those dialogues and we are part of those efforts So if you look 2 to 3 years down the road, and we recently did that also as part of our strategy process, what you basically see is that many of the things we've been dreaming of for the last 5 or 10 years are increasingly possible, also because a lot of money has been flown into the industry, but also because the technology is increasingly enabling it. So think, really the long-term discussion from moving hospital into the home, it's happening as we speak. Or the consumerization of healthcare. Well, we really recently saw a big merger in North America of Aetna and CVS. We recently see that the players like Apple, Google, even Microsoft, all of them are announcing their efforts into healthcare. So it's really take my word, it's really going to happen now, and this is an opportunity to be part of that journey. So.
Thank you very much. A question coming in from Guillermo, who is asking, could you tell us about a time where you had a conflict with the company's leadership about a particular project, and how did you overcome it?
Well, that's a good question. Conflict sounds very big. I'm personally not a big conflict kind of person, but I think if you make strategies about choice, I said that before. So if choices need to get made, you often have, emotions can get in the way, because there is a lot of it is hard data, but part of it is also preference. So I without going into too many details, we early on. A couple of 2 to 3 years ago, we, of course, like many technology companies in health tech, were also looking at our own wearables effort. We had carved out a specific position there, position around more medically enabled and FDA-approved wearables. The revenue at that moment just didn't come fast enough. That was also not just with us, but also with the Fitbits, etc. It was just relatively early stage. So I felt we actually were potentially pulling the plug too fast on something which was a breakthrough innovation, because there were no real medical grade wearables at that stage. Now you get into good debate there. I think in the end you also look at what can you do to understand each other better, and what can you still do with the technology that you have, which we actually did, because we took some of that wearable technology and brought it into our sleep and respiratory diagnosis business. But yeah, I mean, you have debates there, and at the end of the day, one of my things I've learned is also that certain things are better not debated. Sounds a bit like an old guy, but in the moment. So one of the things I really like to do is park stuff, come back to it a day later, talk about it a bit more. I mean, big decisions, you need to be decisive, but big decisions, you can take a couple of days or even a week or two before it, so that you really have it sink in and you've listened to the different voices around the table. So I don't know whether that is a good example, but it's at least an example that I'm still fairly still big in my mind. So.
Thank you very much. A question coming in from Rodion saying, for him, values are very important. Could you please tell a little bit more about the Philips key values and how they shape the improvement initiatives?
Yeah, I think, we talked about some of them, and also looking at Linda, I think diversity is an important one. That's the benefit of also having been a global company for a long, long time. Philips is over 100 years old. We've been starting in China and India, even to the extent that many people in those markets think Philips is from their country. So that drives a lot of diversity. You see it in some of the pictures here. So diversity is an important one. The other one we of course look at is consumer and customer focus. It's in a technology company. I'm sure many of you have been or are part of a technology company. That's always hard, but there also sits the opportunity, right? I mean, how do you really, and you probably on LinkedIn see some of our business and market leaders regularly showing and sharing when they're on the road and talking to customers. That's a very important one. At the end of the day, what you do today, how does that change the life, improving lives through meaningful innovation? How does it change the life of the consumer or the customer, or is this just internal waste? So I think that's the other one. And the third is what we call teaming up to excel, really doing stuff together. Complex problems will require collective brain, heart, and hands power to get it resolved, because otherwise it's probably not the right solution that you're looking for. So those are a couple of important ones, of course, and you'll see that also in our stated culture. We always act with integrity, and that's important. You cannot do business without integrity. It sounds like short-term wins sometimes, but it's a long-term loss. So.
Thank you. Next question would be, where and how is Philips leveraging machine learning? What applications do you personally like best?
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, so so I think the question was, where are we leveraging machine learning, and the second part was?
Oh, what applications do you personally like best?
Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, it's one of those big things. AI. Of course, I think we actually did an analysis, and we already have. I think it was around 300 people working on it, also in Philips. I'm not, just to be clear, actually by training, I've studied information technology, but I'm not working deeply in the area at the moment. I can give you a strategic perspective. I think we're investing in it. We, of course, as you saw in our leadership positions, we're sitting on a lot of data, for example, based on our ultrasounds, based on our imaging system, based on our consumer applications, increasingly being connected. So what we're looking at is indeed, how do you use machine learning to actually bring those data to life? I think so we're investing, it goes from very big, like the imaging systems, to software, so helping image analysis to find that tumor or that little blip in the arteries or whatever that maybe the tired physician will not see. To actually, what we've done is we've started to embed, which I think is pretty neat, because it's not the first thing you think of, but if you, for example, would have a shaver, and that shaver has learned that based on the data it gets, there's a certain algorithm that fits your skin, that at a certain moment you can actually take that AI, and instead of having it as software, put it on a little chip and then put it into the device itself. So that, in this case, the shaver, or we've done the same for kitchen appliance, that it really recognizes automatically and fast what kind of material or food is being used. I think those kind of like small kind of things that don't have a lot of capacity and technology behind it are also quite neat. But overall, as they say, data is the new oil. I think insight is the new gold then, probably, because AI without people and AI without insight is a bit of a poor ROI. So I'm not sure that answers the question, but.
Yes, thank you. Question from Edward asking, what is the period of the year when you recruit the most?
We recruit throughout the whole year. So it's not specifically after summer or beginning of the year. We really recruit throughout the whole year.
Excellent. And perhaps could you shed a little bit more light on the typical steps in the interview recruiting process? What can people expect once they apply?
Yeah, sure. Once they apply, they will get an answer within a week if they will move forward in the interview process. Then they will first have a recruiter interview. If that's positive, we move on to a first round with often 2 different interviewers. And if that's positive, we move on to the final round, which is again 2 times a 1-hour interview with 2 members from the team.
And maybe just to, just probably again stating the obvious, but what is important here is it's a 2-way street. So the positive does not, I don't think, the way we look at it is, both sides, and that's also how we structure the interviews. I think both sides are looking, does this fit or not, right? So it can also be, I think we also try to create as much room as possible for the people being interviewed to get to know, like we're doing a bit here, although more in a broadcast session, to get to know the company better, right? Is this the place I want to spend, the next 3, 5, 10 years, right? And why does this fit with who I am and what I want to do? So.
Yeah, and also from an international perspective, I mean, we have a lot of people applying from all over the world. So we, the first round will be on Skype, but eventually we, especially in Europe, we will fly you to Amsterdam to see the office and to see also many members of the team.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, we skipped that page, but we can also talk about it without a page. We've created three main. We have three main hubs. So this is not just about Amsterdam. We're a global company, so our strategy, our strategic talent, of course, is now largely around the world. We have three main hubs. One is Amsterdam, one is Shanghai, and the third one is in Boston or Cambridge, where we also increasingly, we've communicated about that, our healthcare activities in North America will increasingly sit in Boston. So that will also bring together all the talent into those locations. So.
Yeah.
Excellent. So perhaps just to conclude, very last question for both of you, what advice do you have for MBAs who are trying to land a role with Philips Strategy Group?
Apply. Yeah, curious to see the different profiles that you have. Of course, we can't see you, but yeah, curious who is on the other side of the line, and looking forward. And also, if you have questions, please reach out. Happy to answer them.
Yeah, what I would add is I mean, there's many things you can do, but at the end of the day, you need to look at yourself. Is this the kind of industry that I would like to spend a significant chunk of my career in, right? Because that's also a topic we, of course, discuss. And at the end of the day, as they always say, I think she put something on LinkedIn recently, but you need to find that sweet spot of where your energy is and what you're good at, plus what a specific company is looking for, and then you really almost like you're doing your hobby and you get paid for it. So if look at yourself without all the details of what does Philips in the details, but more like does this energize me? When I look at the cases, when I look at the materials on the website, do I feel the energy? Is this a mission that I want to be part of? So I would really also take that part in your reflection.
Excellent. Well, I would like to thank you both very much for taking the time to be with us here today to share more about Philips Group's strategy. And the candidates, we will put the recording of the session on the event website within a few hours. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good day.